Hello and welcome to Bookish and Beverages. I'm Melissa and I share delicious beverages and summary recaps on fantasy book series so you can remember what happened without having to reread it. And today we'll be diving into Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is book 2 in the Crimson Moth series, the last one. And content warning, there are full spoilers ahead. So if you haven't read this book, please pause, save this video, come back later. And so let's go get our drink. For our beverage today, we'll be making a witch's intuitive tea. Here's what you'll need. In a tea strainer for loose leaf teas, add 1 teaspoon of rose petals or rose buds, 1 teaspoon of Blue Lotus, 1 teaspoon of Tulsi, or also known as holy basil. Add 1 cup of boiling water, cover, and let it steep for 3 minutes. Once it's done steeping, strain the tea, add honey or sweetener to your taste, stir, and enjoy. Drinks in hand, let's dive into our book. It's been 2 months since the youngest witch queen Cressida revealed herself and escaped to the continent with Rune and the other witches. Our heartless hunter Gideon is on a mission to redeem himself to the Blood Guard as he sneaks into the palace Rune has been seeking refuge in. Seems like Rune has moved on and has done well for herself as the fiancée to the Prince of Umbria, Sorin. The catch? She'll only marry him if he gives Cressida an army to take back her throne on the island. Like the abominable fashion choice of a dress over jeans in the early 2000s, Gideon can't let the reign of witches make a comeback, and he's under order to kill Rune. Hearing her late fiancé and BFF Alex Sharp's piano song, yes, Gideon's younger brother, a grieving Rune heads to the bathroom to pull herself together. Gideon follows her in with a gun aimed to kill, but he can't seem to pull the trigger. Gaining the upper hand, Rune has his gun while Gideon groans on the floor, and in walks his worst nightmare, Cressida Roseblood. Rune leaves Gideon alone with Cressida, and the crazy witch bitch activates the spell in her brand scar on his chest. For her safety, Sorin has Rune guarded up in his room. Using her seductress skills, Rune gets Sorin to agree to sign the army contract with Cressida right meow, so she can sneak out and free Gideon. Nope, she doesn't have feelings for him. She's just doing this for Alex. Are you sure about that? In a temporary truce, our enemies turned lovers turned enemies hide out in a closet so Rune can cast an invisibility spell and hide her Crimson Moth casting mark. Gideon helps Rune back up the balcony to Sorin's room to prove she's been there all along. And Cressida is a grade A bitch and she is not dumb. Cressida threatens Rune. I know what you did last summer. If you know, you know. This time Gideon is convinced he is going to be steps ahead of Rune as he tails her to a wedding dress shop. Joke's on Gideon as he draws a dressing room curtain and Rune has a gun aimed at him. Our cunning, ditzy socialite has the upper hand and is steps ahead again. Boy, when are you going to learn? When are you going to learn? They call a temporary truce to work together. Escaping as Gideon's captive, Rune grabs hidden luggage and leads him to a ship she's booked passage on. Back to the island of the New Republic they go. They've played pretend courting before, so what can possibly go wrong now that they're pretending to be smitten newlyweds on their voyage? Well, Gideon's ex-hookup Abby is on board, police are on the lookout for Rune, and there might be a spy with kill orders for Rune. Rune shares part of her plan with Gideon to gain a little bit of trust. Find the missing Roseblood heir first so Cressida bitch can't resurrect her 2 dead mean girl sisters. Uh-oh, out in public, Rune's polyjuice potion has faded. Quick thinking has Gideon donning his acting skills as the doting husband and passionately kisses Rune. But ouch! The spell Cressida bitch activated on Gideon's scar is like a Cruciatus curse causing him pain while touching Rune. Obviously, Rune mistakes his pain for disgust and runs off to hide. With the coast clear, Rune takes off to the cargo hold to do some more research for her plans. The seemingly smitten William turns out to be the assassin spy, and he's cornered Rune. For research purposes, Gideon kisses Abby, but the Cruciatus curse brand doesn't activate. Interesting. Figuring out who the spy is, Gideon comes to the rescue, telling Rune to leave while he handles William. Of course, our girl stays to overhear Gideon's plans of betrayal and not take out William for real. Getting off the ship the next day goes surprisingly smooth, but the Blood Guard shows up at Gideon's place to take him away while Rune hides out. Clever Gideon shares his plan with the good commander, getting him to agree and let him go. But he has T-minus 2 days to follow through. While Rune still enjoys the finer gifts in life, this girl can't help herself with a good heist. Gideon has Rune dressed up as a blood guard, and they go off to kidnap a toddler named Meadow. But not just any toddler. This is the daughter of the seer witch Rune needs for her plans. And there's no better time than during a time-sensitive heist to air out the dirty laundry between our now twice-over enemies, possibly becoming lovers again. They want each other, but they can't trust each other. They love each other, but they're enemies, and how could they possibly ever be together? Gideon finally reveals the truth about the Cruciatus Curse brand Cresabitch gave him by showing her how it gets activated when they get all hot, bothered, and passionate. Rune is pissed. At Cressida, that is. Back on track for the heist, they find the girl, and not so discreetly. Rune and Meadow escape the shootout while Gideon is taken to the Blood Guard's custody again. Hours later, Gideon makes it back to his place with Aurelia, the seer witch. Rune to Gideon. I overheard your plans. Don't come looking for me. Bye, Felicia. Rune takes off with Aurelia and Meadow. Accio, the long-lost Roseblood heir. Nothing happens when Rune performs a summoning spell at the Summoning Circle Stone, so Rune and the mother-daughter duo hide out and wait. But Gideon is also waiting out and watching when he sees a dream-walking Rune lay out at the Summoning Circle. Light bulb! Holy fuck. He thinks Rune is the missing Roseblood heir Cresabitch is looking to raise her sisters from the dead. Well, that complicates things. Rune wakes up thinking, the spell didn't work, so it's time to skip town and head back to the continent. Rune sneaks back into Gideon's apartment to gather provisions for their voyage. Mister, were you going to leave without saying goodbye? Gideon surprises Rune in more than one way. He makes out with her, giving her a goodbye kiss, and sends her on her way to escape. Dazed and confused and not gonna question his change of heart to let her get away, Rune runs for it. Gideon goes to the Blood Guard headquarters to give false info and orders to buy Rune more time to escape. Layla calls him out on his BS and betrayal. He admits to himself that he still loves Rune and willingly accepts his capture as a witch sympathizer. Ah, my man. Yes, finally doing the right thing for the woman you love. Days go by sailing, and Rune sets anchor outside Soren's palace. About to swim to shore, Aurelia sets sail with her daughter after tossing a jewelry box to Rune and leaving her for good. Inside is a coin necklace and a note from Gideon. He figured out her plan and let her go anyway. Our girl has to make it back to save her man before he's executed. Needing spell books that only Cresabitch would have, Rune sneaks her way into her rooms and finds more than she's bargained for. The True Love's Cruciatus Curse and counterspell that Cresabitch used on Gideon, which means he loves her. He truly loves Rune. But uh-oh, what's that? The witch bitch Queen Cressida finds Rune and gives her a torturous whipping. Remembering the curse's counter spell symbols and the sacrifice she's making, Rune completes the spell before Seraphine steps in. Halt! Rune is your sister. Mic drop. What? A healing Rune wakes up days later on a ship headed back to the island. Seraphine reveals that she was the one who stole Rune away when she was born and left her with Nan to be raised. During story time, Soren's army begins the attack on the New Republic. After being held in the prison cell for days, a resigned Gideon is taken to his execution. Saved by the bell, or rather cannonballs, Layla unshackles Gideon. Outnumbered and outwitted by the witches and Soren's army, the Blood Guard are forced to retreat. Cresabitch has reclaimed her throne. The Reign of Witches, Part 2, has begun, and Rune is being held as a glorified prisoner. At dinner with Kressabitch and the other witches, Seraphine and Rune put their escape plan into motion. Rune leaves to comfort a panicking Juniper, learning that Harrow, Gideon's friend and the Blood Guard spy master that is tonight's witch entertainment, was a dear friend of Juniper's. Promising to rescue Harrow, Rune takes off and runs into Soren. She ends things with him and spills the beans that everything was a ploy to use him. Pissed off and getting a little handsy with Rune, she finds his gun and bam! He's down for the count. Rune rides back to her old home at Wintersea to retrieve a few spell books. Accidentally making some noise in the secret casting room, Rune wrestles in the dark with Gideon? He's alive! There's no time for a reunion as other Blood Guards file in and capture them both. Layla takes Rune outside to be executed. Gideon catches another lucky break when one of the Blood Guards he trained slips him keys to unshackle himself. He takes off to save Rune and they run into the woods to escape. Good thing Rune remembers the spell to stop bleeding because Gideon is shot twice. Her horse lady is the real MVP, showing up at the 11th hour to whisk them away. They roll up to a seemingly abandoned cottage to patch up poor Gideon when two clandestine lovers show up. Bart, is that you? Indeed, it is the pompous, self-absorbed airhead heir of the estate with his forbidden lover, Antonio. Looks like Rune wasn't the only one pretending to be something she's not. Gideon's wounds are taken care of, but where do they go from here? They all want peace from tyranny, but could it ever be possible? The next morning, Gideon wakes up to the sound of Harrow's voice downstairs. Surprise! More guests show up. From the witch crew, we have Seraphine and Juniper. From the old Blood Guard crew, we have Ash and Abby. Let's get everybody to calm down, so breakfast it is. At the sight of Abby, longingly gazing at Gideon, Rune takes off to the hot springs and breaks down. Gideon realizes Rune is missing and the incident about her whipping torture sesh slips out. Gideon confronts Rune and reveals that she did it to break his curse. So they can be together, right? Not yet. She wants to run away and he wants to stay and fight for freedom. She's just a small town girl living in a lonely world. Rune took the midnight train going anywhere. Thank you for sitting through that. And lucky for Rune, Harrow convinces Gideon to go to the train station to make sure Rune safely gets on board because she's about to be caught when he causes a distraction to help her flee. A man for my heart. Unlucky for Gideon because he's been recognized by one of Kressabitch's witch henchwomen. He's accepted his fate and is waiting to be shot when, bang! He's alive and ding dong, the witch is dead instead. Rune to the rescue. They run for their lives, barely jumping aboard an empty train passing by. The Crimson Moth has returned, and she's here to stay. On one condition, her witch hunter has to marry her. They seal the deal with a long overdue bounce chicka wow wow sesh. Back at Wintersea, Rune and Gideon go to the abandoned house to collect Rune's spell books. There's a mysterious clanging noise that leads Gideon to a handcuffed Layla left behind as a traitor. Thank God for Rune because Gideon might have taken an axe to the handcuffs like Rose on Titanic. Outside Bart's cottage, they spot Blood Guard soldiers. But what's this? They're here to join the cause for a better world. Huzzah! And now they have intel on where Kressabitch's sisters' bodies are being hidden. We ride at dawn. 3 days later, Rune, Gideon, Seraphine, and Antonio reach the crossroads to search for the bodies. Rune finds them on the island and gets struck down by lightning. So much for the spell protecting them, fading enough for her to do something. With a slow clap from Kressabitch, Rune realizes they fell right into her trap. Per Rune's request, Gideon shoots Rune in the heart. With one last middle finger to Kressabitch, Rune does one last spell to make Gideon invincible before she dies. With Gideon's new invincibility, Kressabitch is shitting a brick, and the tides begin to turn. Kressabitch is held down as Seraphine performs the resurrection spell to bring Rune back, and Rune lives! And Seraphine isn't actually a witch, but one of the ancient sisters who can finally return home. 3 months later, Rune and Gideon are married, and it's just the beginning of making the better world they longed for. That concludes the summary for Rebel Witch. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more summary recaps on your favorite fantasy series. If you enjoyed this one, please like, subscribe, and share with your fellow book lovers. And if there are any summaries that you want recaps on, just drop it in the comments below. And thank you, thank you, thank you.